Welcome to the Metal Bob Live Podcast. I'm your host, Metal Bob. Today's show is episode 65 of the podcast, and on today's show we have a good friend of mine, guitarist and producer Collin Keemle. Unfortunately, Bazooka Phil was unavailable during this episode, but we look forward to having him back soon. So kick back, have a listen, watch the video, and enjoy the show. Thank you.
My old roommate, because I just moved into my new place, but my old roommate, he plays bass for Luke Combs, and it was last summer, they were on their tour, and he came home from, they were out in Boston, and he's like, hey man, he's like, I know you like sports, and you're kind of athletic and stuff. Do you like, I have some clothes here. I guess the Patriots GM was a guest at their show and gave them each like $500 worth of like apparel and bags and stuff, and he's like, do you want this stuff? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm not actually, I love Tom Brady, but I'm not like a huge Pats fan or anything, but I love the shirts. So
yeah, I had to give you shit, man, because I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
So how you been?
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm just busy. Good busy though. I've been playing with a bunch of people, which has been great. And I actually was just working on a song. She's a woman that I've played with a few times. Her name's Macy Nicole, and she has a massive social media following. I would say she started off as kind of an influencer. I think she has a couple million on TikTok, but she actually is a great singer and a songwriter. And so she got a hold of me about doing a couple songs for her. So I was actually just working on those a little bit ago. But yeah, just grinding, man. I just played with Eric Pasley 2 weeks ago, last week or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Which was the biggest opportunity I've ever had, which was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool to get to hang out with those guys and play with them. And I didn't realize, he had a couple of big hits, probably like 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was in Dirt Road Rockers, and I remember those songs being on the radio, and I always liked them. But I didn't realize he was as big of a songwriter as he is. There was like 5 #1 songs in the set list. Like Barefoot Blue Jean Night, Even If It Breaks Your Heart. He wrote the song called Wild Hearts by Keith Urban.
Oh yeah,
like these huge songs, and especially the first 2, I had heard a million times and played them in bands even, and I did not know that he wrote them, so that was cool. But yeah, so I've just been grinding, man. Just doing everything and trying to stay busy, and it's a lot of hard work, and it can be kind of daunting sometimes. But honestly, when you get those little signs that like you're moving in the right direction, it definitely makes it worthwhile. And I feel like I'm doing that, so I'm pretty happy.
Nice. Well,
yeah,
so the people that don't know you, this is my guest, and I've known this guy for years. His name's Collin Keemle. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. See, yeah. I thought I was going to mess it up, but
no, that was perfect.
No, I appreciate you taking time tonight, man. I'm glad that things are going well for you. So what are you currently up to? I mean, what do you have on your plate right at the moment?
Right at the very moment, I'm doing those 2 songs from Macy. I play Broadway once in a while. I've got a buddy of mine. His name's Warren Garrett. He's an artist. He's great, but a super guy, and always has a badass band. So I play with them sometimes down on Broadway. I don't play multiple times a week, but it's fun to go down there and play once or twice a week and play with guys like that. Just doing that, and kind of just been getting called to play with people.
That's
just like
great.
Fill in with random artists, which I've always been a guy that, I want, and I still am like this. I prefer to have one touring gig with an artist that I like the music, and something I like invest my performance into, rather than playing with a million different people. But it's been kind of cool playing with a bunch of different people, and getting to meet new people, which is always good, because I think, when you're a producer and doing what I do, you have a tendency to become like a hermit. You know what I mean? Because you're always working at home and always working on stuff, so you don't go out. You know what I mean? And so, randomly you'll be like, why don't I have more friends? And I have a lot of friends in the music business. I have, tons of people I've met since I've been down here, but like none of them don't really have a lot of like, hey bro, come out with us type friends. You know what I mean? And I was just like, well, why is that? I'm like, oh, it's because I don't leave my house hardly ever. Yeah, so I've just been doing that, and it's been great, man. And having to learn entire new sets of music all the time is interesting. You know what I mean? I never really ever had to do that. So I've definitely gotten a lot better at being able to, like have all of that stuff in my head. Because I prefer when I play shows. I mean, obviously, if I have to use charts, I will. But I much prefer to not have to use charts during shows, to where I can actually be a performer and be part of this, part of the band, rather than just like sitting over there looking at my charts, making sure I'm playing the right chords.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? So that's something that I've definitely been getting a lot better at. But there are times though. I mean, if you get called really last minute to do something like a couple days beforehand, and you don't have time to really go through all the songs, like you're gonna have to use charts. But I do my best to not have to use them. But yeah, so I've just been doing that, man. It's just busy, but like I said, it's been a good busy. I
Nice.
definitely would rather have it this way than not be busy, which I have been that before also for many years, and that is not fun.
So I think, well, it's been about a year now that you were here in town. You were with Trey Lewis at the time. You guys came
crazy.
through Columbia, and that was a great show, man.
Dude, thank you. I was so happy that you were there. I know you mentioned that we've known each other for a long time, but I have, and I've said this to you, privately, but I have always loved you as a person and as a singer and musician. You're awesome, and you've always been one of the guys. Honestly, it was even before I really knew you. I just remember going to see you and Scotty down at what the hell was it, the Milan,
the Village Pub, or the
yeah.
pub.
And I remember, I don't know if you remember Caleb. You remember Caleb?
Oh yeah.
So Caleb was like, dude, you got to come see this guy Bobby. He's awesome. And I had to have been like, God, probably 15 or 16 years old. And I came down and watched you guys. And I just, even though I didn't really know you, I was like, I like that guy. There's something, obviously you're awesome at what you do, but it's like, there's something about that guy that I like him. And I've always felt that way, man. And so when you came out that night, I was like, hell yeah. I was really glad you guys came. And I can't believe it's been a year.
It's nuts.
That when you sent me that picture, and I was just like, what was that? Like a couple months. Oh, it was like a year ago.
Yeah. Well, has it been quite a year? I know it's got to be close.
It's close. Because it was on the fall tour, and I want to say it was probably September,
October, somewhere around there.
Early October of 23. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate the kind words, man. I mean,
yeah.
But you're the guy tonight, man. We're talking about you.
Oh God.
No, I don't. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. I'm just giving you a hard time, man. So this Eric Paisley that you just played with, is this something that's going to continue, or is this something that you just?
I was filling in. I don't know the specifics of his band situation as far as the guitar thing. I'm sure he has a regular guy. But I think, for some reason I was filling in, but I just went into it going, I'm going to do the absolute. I mean, they're going to get the best out of me that I could possibly give. And that way, if anything, they need more sub work in the future, or if the guy, whatever happens, if they need a guitar player, they would want to call me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you don't get that many opportunities like that. You get a lot of opportunities that come your way, but very seldom I feel like do you get an opportunity to play with a guy like that. Especially this early on in my, I've only been here 2 years, not even actually, it'll be 2 years next month. And I've already had a couple of really awesome opportunities, and I'm just like, man, you got to take that by the horns and just like, crush it. So, sorry, that's kind of a long answer to that question, but
no, that's all right.
I mean, I would certainly love to play with him again. The whole band was awesome. It was me, the bass player Travis, the drummer Josh, and then Eric. And the drummer and the bass player were just stupid good, which was awesome. And super professional guys, great to hang out with. And I mean, hell, we flew from Nashville into Charlotte. The show was in Columbia, South Carolina, and we flew from Nashville to Charlotte, and then it's only like an hour from Charlotte, so they got to rent a car, and we drove to Columbia, and then when we flew home, we just flew straight home. But anyway, so there was like an hour drive in between Charlotte and Columbia, or whatever that was. And Eric and I started talking about tornadoes, and we talked about tornadoes for like 2 hours. And I was just like, man, because that's one of my things. I have these random subjects that I like am just immersed into, like JFK is one of them, and then tornadoes is another one.
Yeah,
and,
I know you're pretty fascinated with weather and storms and stuff, man.
Yeah, it was a movie Twister. I've always been, but it was the movie Twister. When I was a kid, and that movie was just like the greatest thing ever.
Well, we're from the Midwest, though, man. We're the kind of guys that'll stand out on the porch and watch until you got to get the hell out of Dodge.
Absolutely. I have a crazy tornado experience story, by the way, to tell you in a second. But yeah, so it was great. We hung out, we got along real well, and I certainly would love to play with him again. And it was one of those gigs, man, where I love his tunes. Like his songs he's great. He's actually good. And not just good, he's great singer, great songwriter. And so when you're playing the stuff that you really like to be playing, and you're playing with guys that are really, really great, I mean, you know what that's like. It's the best. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, you not a lot of times, but often enough in the music business, in my experience, you'll have to do things, play music or play with bands or artists and stuff that it's not really your cup of tea, but you got to do it because it's you're a professional and you have to do it. But it's not like the most fun thing ever. And so to get those opportunities to play with someone where you're like, man, I love this stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you mind me asking about,
Ask about anything you want.
so,
I'm an open book.
well, I brought Trey Lewis up because that was the last, touring band that you were with.
Yeah.
What transpired there? What made you move on?
You know, so when I joined his band, I was just, and I loved his songs. I still do. And when I joined his band, I was just like, man, he had Dick Down in Dallas come out and it was a double platinum hit. And I joined the band and we were on a tour bus. And I was just doing stuff that I had never even come close to doing before. Um, and it was amazing. And I was just all in. I'm one of those guys that I just want to be a part of something, whether it's a band that I'm in, that I'm doing, or I'm playing for someone else, like whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to love it. And then once I do love it, I am just like all in. I'm going to stay in this band until I retire. And then I'll, be a successful producer when I'm not on the road, you know? So that's how it started. But over the course of, I was in the band technically for just over a year, but I had been playing with him for 2 years. I had done quite a few shows where I subbed in for the old guitar player before me, Terry, who was great. I love Terry. And then Ben, who was the guitar player with me. You met and saw Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I did like quite a few shows where I filled in for either of them for about a year before I started playing with Trey officially. But it just kind of got to a point where there were some personnel changes that I didn't really care for. Not necessarily in the band, just like in the management area, there were some personnel changes that I was really not happy with. And I thought, from my experience, and again, maybe they made the best decision for them. I don't know. But for me, as my experience, I was not happy with it because I thought it, was a mistake to get rid of that this person that had was no longer with them, and so that kind of started making me feel a little bit differently about it. I was also very close to that person. He still is one of my best friends. And so when he was gone, it kind of was like, oh man, like I don't really know, how I'm feeling about this right now. And so that was kind of the start of it. And just some other things that started happening as far as I wasn't really enjoying it quite as much as I previously was. So it just got to a point where I was starting to become not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like even at home, I was not happy because of it. And I just finally was like, what, I think I need to put my resignation in and move forward. And that's what I did. And it wasn't any crazy drama or anything like that. It was just time to go. It was like being in a relationship where you learn a lot and you had a really good thing for a long time, but it kind of runs its course and you're like, all right, well, I don't really feel like this is, where I need to be moving forward. Normally when I make big decisions like that in my life, no matter what it is, no matter if it's in like my personal life or professionally or anything, I always second guess myself. I always, even if it was the right decision, I always sit there and go, man, I don't know if that was the right decision or whatever. And from the moment I made that decision, I was a lot happier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a negative thing on them. I'm just saying, for the situation, I was a lot happier, and I'm very glad that I stepped down from that. And the way I look at it, man, is I had a really great run with an awesome band, and I got to experience some incredible things that I've only dreamed about, like playing in front of 20,000 people with him, and learned so much. Before that, musically, yeah, I feel like I could play with anybody, like a stadium artist or something. But there's so much about being on tour that you have to learn that isn't on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know any of that stuff before I started playing with them. And I learned all that stuff by playing with them. So now I feel, totally prepared to have a major label gig with somebody and feel totally confident in all of the, aspects of that. And that's because of playing with Trey. So, I got a lot of amazing things from it. And, my time was had run its course and I moved on.
Yeah, well, and I get it too because like when you're on the other side of the fence, when you're the fan watching the performer, you see a live show. That's all we see. We don't see everything else that's going on around you and everything that's going on behind the scenes. So.
Right. And there's so many, and that's another thing I didn't really realize to its full extent. until I started playing with Trey's. The logistics of a tour, and and again, Trey's a successful artist, but Trey's not like a Taylor Swift level artist by any means, right? But even at Trey's level, the logistics that go into having 12 people on the road. And when you saw us, we were in the van, but we had the bus for a long time, and we had it like intermittently after I saw you. But for the first 9 months of being in the band or so, we had the bus full time, and there were 12 guys out on the road. We had tour manager, all of us in the band, a merch guy, the driver, and the logistics of all of that, and making sure that everything runs smoothly and we're in the right place at the right time and everybody's got what they need. That fell onto our tour manager Josie, who is one of my, like I said, he's one of my best friends, and he did just an incredible job. But I didn't realize the amount of stuff that has to be dealt with just for a day, like a day sheet. Every day you get this sheet of paper, and it just has your itinerary basically on it.
Mm-hmm.
And for all that to go exactly the way it needs to be, and for everyone to have what they need, on a daily basis is a ton of work and a ton of stuff going on. And it was quite insane learning about all of that. But now that I have that knowledge, it's like, I feel very happy that I learned all that stuff from being with them.
Yeah, I think one of the good times we had that night, man, was and you were trying to scramble around town trying to find something to eat, and it was starting to get fucking raining and shit.
Yes, yeah, it started pouring rain. That we eat at that Mexican restaurant, right?
Yeah, that was good, man.
That was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that was awesome. And I know something that I wanted to ask you about that I kind of asked you about at lunch that day. I wanted to, and I know you had me on to talk to me, but I wanted to ask you, because I've always wanted to, about what it was like in the Quad Cities music scene in the 80s. Like when Lynn Allen was playing, and what was it like for you, and like who were the older musicians that you kind of like took a shine to you, and like what was that all like for you? I've always wanted to know your perspective on your experience with that, because I only hear Bob talking about Bob Boyd. He played in Dirt Road with me forever, and obviously Lynn Allen. I only hear from Bob and the guys in Lynn Allen or in bands back then about it, and I've always wanted to hear it from someone else from the outside perspective, what that was really like.
Yeah, I kind of came into the scene probably around, I don't know, it was been in early 90s for me, but I did get out to some of the clubs and see some of the bands. There used to be a venue, if I'm saying it right, that was called Sharky's up on 23rd Avenue.
Yep, Sharky's. I've heard about
I know that, Billy and those guys played there quite a bit. There was a band running around called Crazy Ace back then. It was a real good, they did a lot of 80s rock covers. It was real. It was just it seemed to me like it was more of a big party back then, man. Like,
yeah,
every bar was packed. You didn't have to advertise anything.
wow.
Everybody knew where the bands were. They knew the clubs where the bands were playing. I mean, it was just, from the late 80s, early 90s, even up to almost 2000s, everything was just, you could almost guarantee there was going to be almost a capacity crowd at any of these clubs.
Man, I can't even imagine. Like the reason I asked you is because I kind of like have like these fantasies about it where I think about it, and fortunately, when I joined Dirt Road Rockers, like about 2 years into it, we really started to, create a pretty big following. And from that point on, all of our shows were always really, really awesome and busy. But, for the first couple of years, I mean, we had to grind, and I just remember hearing all the stories about what the clubs were like. And, and honestly, I haven't played in the Quad City scene, and, because even when I was in Dirt Road Rockers back, and when I moved back from Florida in 21, we hardly ever played in the Quad Cities. We were all over the place. So I haven't played like gigs in the Quad Cities consistently in like almost 10 years.
Yeah.
But I got lucky, once that started to take off, that, all the shows are really cool. But, I just feel like I hear about what things used to be like in the scene in the Quad Cities. And it's just not like that at all anymore. And it's probably not like that anywhere. I don't think it's just the Quad Cities, but
it's not.
It's wild to think about, playing shows where like it was packed and people were coming to see the band, and and people loved live music. Now it's like you have to market it, and like almost like, I don't mean coerce in like a bad way, but you have to like coerce people to come out and
you
see.
Do. No, you're right.
And I feel like back then, from what I've heard, it wasn't like that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was exactly like I said. You could go to any club. You could have Lynn Allen playing on one side of the street. You could have whoever on the other side of the street, and both bars would be doing very well. I mean, there was just people just flocked to get out to have a good time and see live music. And like you said, now you really got to coax people, or you got to really have something special to get a lot of people's attention to draw them in.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And also, like in Dirt Road, I think something that one of the things I love that Wyatt would do, which I'm glad that he figured that out, because it's, especially if we're getting to Nashville and seeing how booking agents, how they book like bigger artists, it's Wyatt does the exact same thing, where Wyatt would only book us to play in the Quad Cities like maybe once a month or maybe once every couple months, rather than playing in the Quad Cities every week.
Mhm.
And so that always guaranteed that our shows in the Quad Cities would be badass. Because if you play in the same place every week, it's like supply and demand. You're gonna kind of split your crowds into pieces,
Right.
rather than just, if you just play once there every month or once every couple months, all the people that would go see you regularly are all gonna come out at once.
Yeah.
But that was kind of off topic. But yeah, I've just always wondered what it was like back then. And
No, you hit the nail on the head, really, man. It was a lot less work to draw crowds back then. I mean, you still had to be good. People still had to want to see you, but I mean, it just seemed like that it was a little bit effortless when people would just come. People would just go out,
right.
and then as times change, for whatever reason, bars just kind of wanted to, dial it down a bit or whatever, and just
Mhm.
people just didn't seem like they're. I feel like it's kind of changing again. I feel like people are starting to flock out to see live music again, and I could be
Right.
wrong. I don't know. It's been. I haven't lived there in 7 years. I really don't know what the music scene's like, but I do know that shortly after, I don't know, I would say middle 2008, 2009 is where it seemed like it started to dip down a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. And
Yeah.
I started playing guitar in 2009. But I started to go out and see bands shortly before that with my parents, and mostly just going to see Nate Nicholson. But and I remember, at that time, Funktastic Five was like the band, and you had Nate and Craig Bentley and Eric Sparks on drums, Kindred on bass, and then Whistle singing, and it was just such an insane band. I mean, that iteration of that band is one of my favorites ever. And I feel like that was the tail end of, they were big, and obviously Billy was playing a lot, like with Glenn Allen, and it seemed like the scene kind of, you're right, it just started to kind of go like this as far as clubs that were having bands. That's another thing I've noticed that's gone down a lot, is like back then you had a lot of different clubs that were booking bands, and now it's like there's not that many.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got to see that, but I've definitely noticed the trend where people aren't really going out as much.
No.
I think lately too, even on Broadway, actually, this is interesting. So, obviously I just started playing down there once in a while, but my friends that I've been playing with that have done it for years told me that this year across the board, bartenders, musicians, everybody on Broadway, they're down 30%
Mm.
from last year. And I think that all the stuff that's going on with inflation and everything, I actually think it's gotten to the point where it's actually affecting, stuff like that. Like people really aren't going out and spending money and seeing bands and stuff anymore. So I think that definitely has something to do with it right now. And hopefully, that gets better, because I think that, live entertainment, obviously if you run a business, what's the first thing you're going to cut when things get real tight?
Right.
Bands.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I don't blame them, because it's like, you have to keep your doors open. It's like, if you have to choose between a band and live entertainment or running your business and keeping it open, you're going to get rid of the band. So,
Right.
hopefully that all gets better, but yeah.
And there were quite a few venues that had bands every weekend that completely cut the
Yeah.
whole thing out.
I remember even stuff like, you remember Purgatories, which I think it's still
Oh
open.
man, I used to play.
Dude,
We packed
yeah.
that place every weekend, but it got to a point where
Yeah, same. We used to play Purgatories all the time. And it was one of those clubs where it was tiny, but God, I had a lot of fun at that
oh,
club.
it was a blast.
Yeah. So Purgatories was one of them. Martinis
Yep.
on the Rock River, man. That place was, when Dirt Road Rockers, when we first started really, like, I would say, like becoming successful, or like we were really drawing big crowds and things were starting to roll for us. That was the club. That was our club.
Mhm.
Like that was I think every band has their like home club where they're like, yep, this is where it's going to be at its best. And that was it for us. They like closed, and actually, well, there was a New Year's Eve. We had a New Year's Eve gig there. I want to say it was 2015, 14 going into 15. So New Year's Eve of that year. We had this big show set up. We brought in all these crazy lights, and pretty sure we had an opener, and it was going to be this big old thing. And we got done with sound check, everything set up, and we're all about to head back to our houses to get showered and hang out before we come back to play. And the bar manager comes out and says, "Yeah, the owner didn't pay his taxes, so they're shutting us down at midnight." And like that was it. That was the end of it. Yeah.
Mm.
And so how we got around it, how the show went on, is the bar manager, who was a good friend of mine. Do you remember Steve Heath?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Steve Heath, which I love Steve. I haven't seen Steve in forever, but
Great guy.
he was always so awesome to me.
Yep.
But Steve comes out and we're like, what the hell are we gonna do? You know what I mean? And Steve comes out and he has these tokens. And he's like, here's what we're gonna do. He's like, people can buy these from us. And these are like their drink tickets. So they can still buy drinks even though the bar doesn't have its alcohol license anymore if they buy these. And then we just exchange it, like, for the alcohol basically. And it was like this like loophole legally, but it was legal, that they were able to still sell like alcohol.
Nice.
And so the show still ended up going on, but that was it though. That was the last time I ever played at Martini's, and I'm pretty sure that was the last time they ever had, like bands, like real bands, not just like acoustic stuff or whatever. That place has always been interesting to me because it's right on the river, and it could be such a awesome place. I mean, that place in the summertime could be the place to be
Oh, absolutely.
in the Quad Cities, and no one that's ever owned it has really ever done it right. And I wish that they would, because man, that place could have been awesome. But
they never gave it its full potential. That place could have been a gold mine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I went on like a tangent there about that, but man, those were fun times.
But yeah, I mean, you're right, man. I mean, it's just a lot of the clubs that we, even a lot of the ones that you played when you were living there, man, a lot of them aren't even there anymore, or they've changed owners, and the new owners don't want to have bands.
Yep. Did you ever play Champs in Sterling?
I think so. Champs, and there was one. I played with Wyatt. I think there.
Did you play at the Cooler?
Yes.
The
Cooler in Rock Falls. Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure they're still open. Renee and Kendra, they're
awesome.
Oh
yeah, as far as I know, they are. But yeah, I did some shows with sleeping on the couch there a few times, and
it's so funny. I keep forgetting that you were in that band too.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But yeah, like Champs in Sterling was awesome. I missed that place. There's a lot of places, and I'm glad I got to experience it. You know what I mean? Like, party is like, damn, that sucks. But also, I'm just glad that I got to be around. Like playing with Timo.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? Like I got to do all that stuff with those guys and experience that. So I'm just glad that all that stuff happened.
Yeah, we had that. I'm not sure why you weren't there, or if you were busy, but I know we had that big. Shortly after Tim had passed away, we had that big deal. I think it was at the Cooler in Rock Falls is where we had that.
Tim passed away in 2017, right? 16. I think. I'm pretty sure I
16.
was 16. Yeah, I think I would have been either here or I was in Florida.
I think that's what Wyatt told me, that you were.
Yeah, I don't think I was in town. I think I was somewhere. Because I feel like I absolutely would have been there.
Oh, I know. I had no.
Yeah, Tim was
no doubt.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
He was the best, man. I actually one time we did a band photo shoot out at you went out to Tim's farm, right, in Erie?
Oh yeah.
To go out there, yeah. So we did a band photo shoot out there, and he had this big, huge outbuilding, where like tractors and boats are and stuff. And I had this brand new white DBZ, which is a Dean. I loved this guitar. It looked like a Dave Navarro, Paul Reed Smith. And we did a photo shoot, and I left the guitar underneath this like probably 25, 30-foot tall garage door, and somebody shut the door after I left, and it snapped the guitar in half. And I was just like devastated. I was like, God damn it, Colin. Like, it's like you have one job, And a couple months later, when we played a show, did you ever play at it was called the Landmark when I played there in Erie, that bar in Erie. It's a little bar in like the town square. I don't know. It could have been called the OP.
I remember that. I played there.
Yeah. Yes. So we were playing at that place, and in comes walking Tim with my guitar, and he rebuilt it and like put the neck back together and everything, and gave it to me, man.
That guy's amazing, man.
Yeah, I have a great picture actually from that night of us together when he gave it to me. It was awesome.
Yeah, he was a great dude, man. They're one of a kind for sure.
Yeah, and I was talking about with like the stories, man. Like hearing stories like of him and Bill Weaver, playing in a band together, and what it was like gigging in the 70s. Like
right.
It's just it's crazy to think about what it was like playing gigs back then. With just the rigs and the lights and I mean, it was hardcore.
Yeah.
Like you had to be as I would say, a lifer to do that back then, and I love hearing those stories.
Yeah, I don't miss hauling all that heavy shit around though.
No, me either. I mean, finally, Jerry Smith?
Yeah, I know who
So
Jerry is.
When Jerry joined Dirt Road, he kind of took over, and thank God, because all of us didn't have to worry about it anymore. Kind of took over the production side of things, and he brought in his amp rack, and he's got the Behringer, like I think they're iNukes, but these like 6,000 watt power amps, but they're like 5 pounds.
Oh, I know it.
And it replaced Wyatt's rack, which was awesome. It was a killer rack, but he had these like the QSC, which I actually have one of this here. But those heavy, they're like 50, 60 pound each QSC power amps. And there's like 8 of them. And we used to have to like carry that thing and lift it up and throw it in a van. And so it honestly amazes me how we did any of that stuff we did. It was crazy, but yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, hell, that was all the work was setting all the gear up. Plan was just having
Oh,
fun.
dude. Yeah, man. Right. And then you'd play and get drunk and you're having a great time, and then you like a girl, like for me, if I was single, there'd be a girl there that wants to hang out with me, and we'd get done, and I'm all excited. And then I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, can you wait here till 2:30 a.m. while I tear down? And they would always leave.
Yeah, I
I'm
can't
like, I
blame
don't
them, I
blame
guess.
them. I don't blame them. God, but yeah, I mean, that was back when There was a time where I ran. I had 2 Marshall 412 cabinets, and I ran again. So I had a JCM 2000 head that I was using as my main head, and then I ran the second cabinet with a Gens Benz, and I ran the second cabinet as a stereo cabinet, and I had like this plexiglass shield and this rack system, just the most ridiculous shit ever. And I did that for like 2 years, man. That was my rig, and I tell you what, it looked good when it was set up and it sounded good, but man, I can't even imagine doing that nowadays.
No, no.
The amount of work that I had to do, and somehow I fit that all in my little Lincoln LS. I still don't know how I did that, but yeah, man, that was just hilarious.
That's great, man.
Yeah, I
So I wanted to ask you, so I know that you're getting into doing some producing.
yes, sir.
So where are you at with that adventure?
Um, so how that went, I've always wanted to be a producer forever. And I have a funny story. It's not really a funny story, but I remember being a kid, and I would have been like 4 when Shania Twain's "Come On Over" came out, like the
Mhm.
big record, the huge one with like
Oh
"Man, I
yeah.
Feel Like a Woman" and stuff on it. And I remember being like 4. Again, I did not have any interest in playing music, didn't know anything about it, nothing. This is 10 years before I ever even picked up a guitar. I remember being in my mom's car and hearing the background vocals on "That Don't Impress Me Much," the little and that's Mutt singing those. Yeah, Mutt always, for the most part, on all the records he produces, he's the guy doing all the background vocals, and it's like a thing. That's like one of his things. And I remember hearing those as like a 4-year-old, and just they were the most heavenly sounding, amazing things I had ever heard. And I always just, for some reason, was gravitated towards that. And then as the years went on, there would be all these songs I would hear from these random artists that I always just loved. And there was this sound to them, and I was just like, God, I love these songs. And then one day I put it all together that it was the same guy that produced all of them, and it was Mutt. And that's how I got into producing, was because I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. So fast forward to me moving here, it's what I moved here to do. Like, I love playing live and I love touring, but I want to get married and have kids, and have a like the home life that I've always wanted. And so, touring isn't exactly the, easiest thing to
Right.
do with that. No, it's possible. I mean, it's, there's a lot of guys that are married happily and
Oh
have
yeah.
great lives that tour. But for me, what I want to do is be a successful producer, and that's like my career. And then I just play with someone on tour because I love playing with them. So when I got here, you just like make friends. You know what I mean? My friend Ben Miller, the other guitar player in Trey's band, he really helped me out, and still does, but helped me out a lot. And you just meet people, and you find people that, are looking to have someone produce their stuff. And then, how the first stuff that I did here was, uh, did you meet Mitch? Was Mitch with us when you came out, the photographer guy?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he might have been, but Mitch Wallace was at the time was Trey's like media and photography guy. And Mitch had a buddy of his who was an artist, and Mitch had asked Colton, the bass player in Trey's band, if he would produce a demo for, his name was Justin. And so Colton called me and was like, "Hey, dude," because Colton and I both have been wanting to do that. And he's like, "Hey, Mitch just asked me to produce or to do a couple demos for Justin. You want to do them?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we went over and recorded them, and he loved the demo so much that he hired us to produce his singles, like 2 or 3 singles that he did. And so Colton and I, both co-produced it together, and it's pop, but I love the production. I think we did some really, really, really cool stuff with it. His name's Justin Holt. The songs that we did are one was called Architect, and the other was called Mama Still Thinks. But the one of them, the Architect song, was just like a total pop song. I went like total Taylor Swift, Max Martin pop production. And then the other one was like something off of John Mayer Continuum.
Okay.
It was like a Tiny Desk concert where I did a lot of Rhodes keyboard stuff and things like that. But yeah, so that was my first production credits when I moved here. And you just kind of get to know people, and then people hear your stuff, and then if they like it, they call you. And and then Macy, the artist I was talking about, Macy Nicole, she just asked me to do these 2 for her, which I'm really excited about. She actually the one, because she sent me how it works. Well, it depends. It can be different every time. But how this worked was she sent me a phone recording of she and the guy she co-wrote the song with, just like running through the song really quick. She sent it to me and said, "I want this to be like Paramore that can get on country radio." And I was like, say no more. So, I have this track set out right now where there's like some heavy guitars, but there's also like banjo and fiddle in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically like a Paramore, really like a Paramore song with banjo and fiddle on it. But I just love it, man. I love doing that stuff, and I love kind of, you know, blending genres together because again, this is my favorite Eddie Van Halen quote, but he said, if it sounds good, it is good. And that's kind of my mantra. I just live by that. And I think all the great producers do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to their interviews and stuff, that's the commonality between all of them is they're just like whatever sounds good and whatever works is what I'm going to do. And whatever the path is that I have to take to get there, as unconventional as it may be, that's what we're going to do. And that's what I do. And yeah, so again, I ramble about these questions, but yeah, so I've just been, it's kind of how it started. And once you get started, you just kind of keep building on that, and making new friends and networking with people. And what I like to do is try to find people that don't have a big deal yet or anything like that are incredible, but they just got here.
Right.
And then you're like, "Hey, I want to work with you. Let's work together." And then because I think as a producer, you shine your absolute best when you work with an artist who's awesome. It's just how it is. Like you can polish a turd pretty well and make things sound acceptable, but you're not going to sound your best unless you're working with an artist that's actually awesome. And so on those occasions where you get to work with somebody that's fantastic, it's like, it's the best.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing with that. And it's just kind of, it's a word of mouth thing. It's just being friends with people and, people hearing your stuff and liking your vibe musically and as a person. And, if they like you, because producing is a very personal thing. It's like half of it's the producing part and the other half is being a psychologist. You know what I mean? Like knowing,
Right.
and as a vocalist, I mean, I'm sure, like it's it's a very personal thing. And like, it's sometimes you got to really push artists to open up and just be totally fearless and not thinking about like, do I sound stupid right now? Or do I look weird when I sing like this? Or just any of that stuff. You got to make them totally comfortable. And so you can really push somebody to their absolute, like farther than what they think their limit is.
Right.
And that when you do that, that's when you get the great stuff. And I feel like all the awesome producers do that. And then
Right.
they know how to do that. And it varies from a person by person, basis, but
Well,
man,
and you mentioned one, Mutt Lang. I mean, he was great at that.
oh yeah, I
Getting the
mean,
best out of anybody. I
yeah,
mean,
I mean, if you listen to,
AC/DC, Def Leppard. I mean, them albums are phenomenal.
dude, his record sales, I would say, like probably 40%, 30 to 40% of the like blockbuster, like sold 20 million copies type records from 1979 until 2001 were Mutt's productions.
Mm-hmm.
He just has a gift for. First of all, a lot of the times he's co-writing the songs with the artist. AC/DC he didn't, but most of the other ones he is also co-writing the songs with them, not just producing them. But he's got this gift for his just the hooks and the melodies that he writes are just incredible. Like, and you can notice that through, I mean, whether it's the Lady Gaga song that he produced, or it's Def Leppard, or it's Shania, or Bryan Adams. Which, by the way, the Bryan Adams record, "Waking Up the Neighbors," is one of my
Oh,
desert. It's one of my
fabulous record.
desert. Yeah, it's one of my desert island albums. But the one of the things throughout all of his work is these incredible hooks and melodies, and it's. I always describe his productions as they're extremely pleasurable to listen to. Like it's like eating candy, but it's with your ears. It's just like it's just sweet and awesome the whole time. Like it's every part of his songs and production are just enjoyable to hear and listen to. And I love that, and I love the larger than life quality of his productions. I saw it coined somewhere a Star Wars production, and I love that. I think there's a time and a place for a really stripped down organic production, but I've always gravitated towards the larger than life, productions, and I
Hmm.
don't think there's anybody better at that than Mutt. But all the great producers are like that. Even Max Martin, he's I would say the best pop producer in the world, and honestly, I think he's the most successful producer ever if you look at his number ones. But he's like that too. They just have this gift of melody and hooks because that's what people. When you're talking about mass consumption of songs, you know, people are the lyrics, in my opinion, kind of take a back seat. Like they sit in the back seat,
Right.
and the melody and the hooks sit in the front seat because that's what people like. You're in your car and you're like, it makes you like start singing and like moving to it. Is that stuff, and it's what makes it memorable. In terms of again like mass consumption, like pop music, and I think that that's something that I have learned from those guys that I try to, that I always try to keep at the forefront of what I'm doing is that it's like if it feels good and it makes you like want to move around, then that's a sign that it's right. Now there's a time and a place for songs like Piano Man or the record the Edmund Fitzgerald where it's like these story songs, these incredible like detailed lyrics and stories. But when it comes to like music that you want to get on the radio and pop music, I think that the melody and hooks and stuff are the number one thing for sure.
Right on.
Yeah, man.
So is this something that you're gonna keep pursuing then? And you're
Mhm.
gonna keep? That's great,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. It's what I've always wanted to do it. And I finally have like a nice studio. It's taken so many years to finally like piece all this together, and actually have like good equipment. Um, and now I finally have that, and I have great stuff, and so now it's all down to me. It's almost like when as a guitar player, when you finally get like really great, like all your gear is like professional grade.
Hmm.
Now you're like, well, that's awesome, but now I have to deliver.
Yeah.
Now it's on me. Now I don't have a reason to say, oh, this doesn't sound good because of this. Now it's just my fault if it doesn't sound
Right.
good.
Right.
But
See,
yeah, man. So it's cool. I've got this great room. I actually just treated it. I like hung this thing called a cloud, which is you take Owens Corning 703 insulation, which is like the best insulation for studios, and you like put it inside of these like I don't know, like 2x4s and wood and stuff, and then you hang it from the ceiling above you, and it stops the sound waves from like reflecting off the ceiling and shit and heading right back down to you. Because what happens is you'll be in a room like this without any treatment, and you'll get your mix done and awesome. You're like, this sounds great, love this. And then you go listen to it in your car and it sounds like absolute shit.
right.
It sounds like an entirely different mix. You're like, what
Yeah.
what happened? Or on your phone or anywhere, it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
You're like, but it sounded great in there. And this stuff eliminates that because it makes it more like what you're hearing out of your speakers is actually what it sounds like.
Right.
Because those other sound waves flying off the walls are basically lying to you. They're making it sound like it's something that it isn't. So and that's been a cool learning curve. I didn't know anything about that stuff when I moved here. And I've done a lot of research, and I've been pretty diligent about making sure that I could do the best I can with with the money I have to have a good setup here. Fortunately, it doesn't take a lot of money to if you're willing to like build the stuff to have a good sounding room that can get the job done.
Right.
So because my home studio isn't ever supposed to be like the state of the art thing. It's just supposed to be like a place where I can do pro level work at home. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
and I feel like I finally have that, which is cool. And I have like 10 guitars now. You want to see something cool? It's missing a string. I broke it earlier, but this is Nate Nicholson's
Oh
1990.
yeah.
Yeah, this is Nate Nicholson's 1996 EVH Wolfgang. First year, it's a quilt top. And I forgot what model is the. I think it's not. Is it the special or the deluxe? Has the carved top, which I like. Has the two knobs. But yeah, man, this was Nate's, and this was the first guitar I ever saw Nate use when I was a little kid. Because my parents were like extremely tight with him from the time that he moved to the Quad Cities, because he moved to the Quad Cities to visit my mom's best friend, because my mom's best friend used to live out in Jersey where Nate's from, and they became like best friends. So he came here to visit her, and then he met his wife Kathy, and obviously he became really close to my parents. So this is a special guitar. It's not mine. My friend Roger owns it, but I'm trying to get him to sell it to me someday. But he's been letting me use it for a while. Look at that neck, man.
That's
I mean,
beautiful,
that
man.
is just like, and it feels as good as it looks. It is
That's
amazing.
nice.
But yeah, so I gotta change the strings on this though, because I was using it earlier. But yeah, man, I've got all the guitars I want, and like I finally feel like I have everything material wise that I've always wanted, and that I felt like I needed to be able to do the job I want to do. So again, back to the thing I said earlier. Now it's just like, okay, well, now you have to actually do it.
Hey,
Because I
get
feel
to
like
it, man. Get to
yeah,
it.
right. Because sometimes it's easy to sit there and be like, all right, well, if I had an Apollo interface, then I would really be set. And then you get one, and you're like, well, okay, now I have to just make the awesome songs. So that's the part we're working on now.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. I'm glad that you got that ball rolling, man, because I know that's a big deal for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I definitely feel like I'm in a good spot. I just turned 30, which is crazy. I'm excited about it though. I've, as I'm sure you have, I've lost several of my friends, that have passed away, unfortunately, that were my age or younger. And, now that, and from what I've been through in my own life, a lot of it was self-inflicted with drugs and whatnot. I feel like me getting older, I like it. I like that I get to get older, and I like that I'm alive. You know what I mean? And, I feel like I get smarter, and I just make better decisions the older I get. So that's, so I'm happy about it. Some people freak out when they turn 30.
Yeah, wait till you
I'm all,
turn 50, man.
that's what my dad said. My dad's like, shoot, wait till you turn 60. He's like, I'm having my he's like, I'm having my 42nd high school anniversary this year. I'm like, damn, dude, I just had like my 10th, and I was like a couple years ago, and I was like, oh wow. And he's like, wait till you're 60. But it goes fast.
Yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it didn't really feel like it until I turned like 21. Because before that, years felt like years, but now a year feels like 5 months. Like the fact that the last time I saw you at that show was like almost a year ago is mind blowing.
Right. It doesn't
It
seem
feels like
like
it
it
was
was
like,
that long though.
yeah, it feels like it was like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's another thing, is I'm just trying to, stay focused on what I'm here to do, because it does go fast. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
want to make sure that no matter what happens, that I feel fulfilled in what I did, and that I used my time uh, to the fullest of my extent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I didn't waste any
Absolutely.
time or opportunity. So yeah, man.
Yeah, nice, man.
How have you
So
been?
I'm doing all right, man.
That's awesome.
Just hanging in there, man, one day at a time, buddy. That's how I take it. So
Yeah, I'm getting better at that. I definitely am. I've always struggled with, like, I worry about stuff, and I think about
me
stuff
too.
like in front of me that like it's just like not even relevant to my day.
Right.
And I'm getting better at like focusing on the day and the task at hand, because I mean, what the hell? I mean, you don't even know if that stuff's even going to happen or whatever. So I definitely am trying to get better at like
I
living.
get it, man. I'm pretty hard on myself about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's like you just got to stop and think, man, it's out of your control. Some things you just can't control. Some things when things happen, they've already happened. You just got to let shit go. Sometimes, I mean,
Yep.
you sit
Oh
there
yeah.
and ponder on it. It took me a long time to figure that out, man.
Oh yeah. I've gotten better at that. Um a lot of it would be from relationships, that have ended and had been ended for a long time. But there was just like you still hold on to like this. It can either be anger or sadness or whatever it is. You like hold on to it for a long time, and or like friendships. I'm sure you've had this happen too, where you had really good friendships with people, and along the way, like it fell apart. And for years I would carry that. And I've gotten better at just like letting that stuff go,
Yeah.
because it doesn't do you any good to hold on to that stuff.
Yeah, it don't. If they say things happen for a reason, man, whether that's the 100% truth or not, I mean, like it is what it is. It happened.
Yep.
Yeah, all you can do is just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and just get back with it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did want to tell you, Bill Pfeiffer and I are going to be writing some songs together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty. I got a hold of him because I've always I've always admired Billy. Was really really great at writing hooks and melodies.
Oh yeah, that
Like
guy.
like as good as anybody that I've ever met here or anywhere. Like he's
Yeah,
that it's quite incredible. And I got a hold of him, and I was just like, because I want to get a publishing deal as a songwriter, and a producer, and I was like, man, like, I'm like, dude, with where I'm at in my life, if you and I wrote some songs together, like, dude, I feel like we could write some really, really great shit. So, you're gonna start writing some stuff together, and you know, see if we can get the songs pitched to people.
that's
Which,
great, man.
which I honestly really, I mean this when I say this. I have no doubt that we will. I really do. I don't know how successful they'll be. That's almost, if you've seen Donnie, is it from Donnie Brasco? Yeah, the Fugazi. You know what I mean? It's
Oh
like
yeah,
nobody knows if it's going to be a hit or not. Now, when you hear a song and it's a hit song, you know it's a hit song, but whether it becomes commercially a hit song or not,
right.
nobody knows. But I definitely believe that some of the songs that we'll do together will get cut by people, and that'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. But yeah, I don't know why that just popped into my head, but I wanted to tell you about that because I think it'll be pretty cool.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, Billy,
Yeah.
he's the hook master, dude.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, there are some of the, like, I have all of the Lynn Allen records from their first one until, like, basically all the records that they were doing as a band. I have them and I listen to all the time because they were awesome. Like, there's some really, really great songs in that catalog. And he's always been so good at that. And I'm just like, man, if you and I collaborated, I feel like we could do some pretty cool stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm
You
excited about
definitely
that.
called the right guy, man. He knows what's up.
Yeah. And he's another guy that I learned a lot from. Like, obviously playing with Wyatt all those years, that was, the Dura Rockers was a life-changing thing for me. And is, definitely prepared me to do what I'm doing today. And I really realized that when I started playing with Trey, like just performing and stuff, and the way that how comfortable I felt on stage and like moving around and being energetic. And also, like, when, like, there's like there's an audible, we change the set or
Hmm.
something goes wrong, something breaks. Like, I feel so at home in environments like that because of all those years of playing with Dirt Road. But them, and then Billy, I learned so much shit from him. Like old school, like legit, like real deal stuff that is timeless, that you learn about the music business,
Hmm.
that you can only learn from people that have done it. And Billy was one of those people where I learned a lot from him about that stuff. So it'll be cool to, collaborate and do some stuff with him.
Yeah,
And
I look forward to hearing some of it, man.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm pretty pumped. It'll be really cool. But yeah, man, are you playing at all?
Buddy, I haven't done
Really?
I went back home and done a few shows with Scott, and
Yeah.
but those are far and few between. I don't just didn't don't really, at this point in my life, I'm not ready to get back into it and like do the full band thing. I would go home
Yeah.
and I would do a one off, but
Right.
I'm not ready to just do the whole bar scene again.
Oh, it's such a time investment. It's
And
it's a lot.
it
People
is,
don't
man.
realize people don't realize how much work actually goes into that.
I did it for so long. I played music. I think I played my first bar gig, kind of like you. I was 15 years old when I played my
Yep.
first bar
Same.
gig. It's just like,
Yep.
and I did it up till I was in my middle 40s. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is. That's a really long time.
And
I just came up on 15 years of playing professionally.
yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, which is crazy. It's weird because I remember, it used to be like, oh my God, dude, how long have you been playing guitar? And I was like, oh, like 3 years. It was like this, wow. And now it's like when I tell people, oh, 15 years, like, oh, okay. Yeah,
Yep.
whatever. It's like, damn, those days are over.
But yeah,
you know?
I never say never. I mean, if the right opportunity came around, I it would have to make sense. That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying. It would have to make sense for me. But
right.
I'm pretty happy. I do this stuff, talk to guys like you, man, and I have fun doing that.
I love this. When you asked me to do it, I was like, I love doing this.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't get it sooner, man. I know things
No,
happen.
that's okay.
You've been traveling a lot, and I just thought I'd wait till that kind of calmed down, and it was just easier that way. So
Yeah, this is awesome. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And
yeah,
I actually just did kind of a podcast thing with Brian Miner.
I seen
Uh,
that. I seen
yeah,
that you sat down with Brian.
which was a lot of fun. Got to hang
Yeah,
out with him at
Brian's a
the
good
house.
dude.
Yeah, man, it was cool to get to know him because I didn't really. I mean, we've known each other forever, but I didn't really know him
Right.
You know, and so he is doing what he was, you know, he's the guy who took over my job after I left the band.
Yeah.
They were rockers.
Seems like
And
he's having a good time doing it, man.
yeah, and I'm glad it was him because those guys really take it seriously in a good way. And we always did. And we always like put in a lot of effort, extra effort, and a lot of extra things to like make that a cool thing. And you know, not everyone's like that, and I don't blame them for not being like that. You know, not everyone wants to dedicate like a big part of their lives to a band. Um, but Brian was really the only guy in my head at when I told them I was moving. I was like, man, I really think that would be, you know, it would be awesome. I think it would be a great. It would like stay in the same. Things would stay the same as far as like what the band is if he joined the band. And
Right.
so I'm glad it's working out. And it was cool to get to know him, you know, like really get to know him, just like hang out. You know, we just did a run up in Wisconsin
Yeah, I
together.
seen that.
Yeah, because I go back and play with them up there a couple times a year because I just love the people up there and playing with them, obviously. And you know, it's been cool to like hang out with him and actually get to like know him and talk to him and stuff. And you know, again, he was another guy that I think, you know, kind of just like you was doing what I was doing when he was younger. You know, he was a young guy that was playing with dudes that were a lot older than him. And so it's always been cool to get his, you know, perspective on things like that, you know,
Yeah.
because you know how it is, man. When you start young, I don't know if you had this, but you know, I started playing in bands when I was, you know, 14, 15 years old, and you know, I got in Dirt Road Rockers when I was 17. You know, the bands that I played with prior to Dirt Road were cool and fun, but they weren't like, you know,
Right.
they were good, but they weren't like bands that were like, you know, playing Bix and Tugfest and
Yeah.
opening for people and shit like that. And, you know, getting in that band at 17 was the best thing that ever happened to me. But also, I wasn't really prepared for like life. You know, I just was all of a sudden I was in this popular band and, you know, like I never had any girlfriends. Girls never wanted to talk to me. And now all of a sudden it was like, you know, like I had this one girl,
Open the floodgates, man. Here they come.
dude, there, and I'll try to keep this like PG, but there was this girl that in high school just like blew me off all the time that I had kind of had a crush on. And we played a show at the Slip and Slide Festival. It was like this 2-year festival in Milan, which was awesome. Wish they'd still do that. And it was crazy. It was like Woodstock. It was just people were just like camping out and everybody's messed up. And it was awesome. And she and a bunch of these girls I went to high school with were there. And she came walking up to me at just right, like I just walked off stage. We just finished the show. Walks up to me and we had, you know, Baldy, you know, John Coe?
John, yeah. I know
Yeah.
I know John.
Yeah. So Baldy, like at the time was like our stage manager production. He just kind of like helped with stuff. You know what I mean? He would run sound or like at that show, we actually needed security. So he was kind of the security guy. And he's in between us. And she goes, I want to come back here. And Baldy was like, well, show him your boobs then. And she just went, whoop. And she goes, you can grab them if you want. And I was like, you were a bitch to me in high school. I was like, no, I'm not going to grab your boobs. But I'm just saying the story. What I'm saying about it is I wasn't prepared for like that. And so I think that contributed a lot of why I ended up having like a drug problem was because I had never had to work hard really. You know, I had never had to like experience life. So all of a sudden I was in this band like that and playing shows and everyone thinks you're cool and wants to hang out with you and whatnot. And I just kind of, on one hand, it was amazing. And then on the other hand, I think it really caused me to put my foot in a bucket of shit, proverbially. And obviously, you know, that kind of stuff happened. But yeah, so there's just so many things, you know, so many memories and stuff. And I'm glad it all happened, good and bad.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad that all that stuff happened. And hopefully there aren't kids that are listening to this
Oh,
podcast. I'm sorry if of that story.
You're good, brother. It's all good, man.
But yeah,
we've said and done a lot worse on here, I promise you.
oh my God. Yeah, that was a funny moment though, because I was like, man, you were so mean to me in high school. Like, no, I'm not gonna touch your boobs. No, not gonna do it. But
I get it. But
yeah.
I'm glad to see you're doing well, man. I'm glad to see that you're doing what you love, and you know that's what's important, man. You're doing good. You're doing good.
Thank you, man. You know, it's a struggle. You know, you get these things where it's like you get these periods of time where you work and work and work and work and nothing's really happening, you know, and you're just like, and you get depressed and you're like, you know, whatever. But then you get these little fleeting moments of like, you get to experience like greatness and these great things, you know, or these great opportunities that come around once in a while. And those are the things that keep you going, you know, and I'm glad that I've been able to experience a couple of those since I have been here. Because I definitely think I'm a person that I need to have some like proof to myself that like I am getting better and I am improving, you know, as far as like career trajectory wise. Because if I don't have those, I'll convince myself that I'm failing. And so, you know, those come around once in a while, and it's been nice to have those to remind myself, like, hey, you are improving, you are moving up, like things are getting better, and you know, and I'm happy. You know, it's like I said, it's a hard life, and it's a lot of dedication, and it's a lot of not hanging out, not going out, not doing really any of that stuff, and but I know that it's going to be worth it because I feel like that's what it takes to get to where I want to be. You know,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, I got a little something I'd like to do with you, man. So I always do some kind of segment toward the end there. I would like do a top 5 guitar player thing with you.
Yes. Love these.
I think that'd be fun, man. I just kind of
these.
we'll start. They don't have to be in any kind of order. Just 5 of your favorite guitar players, and
Right.
just kind of we'll just kind of bounce back and forth, and you can give a reason why if you want to. You don't have to. It don't matter.
I
Just
probably will. You know me.
oh yeah, you're
talking,
going.
I
Yeah.
won't stop talking.
But I'll let you start, man. I'll let you
All
start,
right.
man.
Oh, this is a good one. So
Give me
5.
drop some names, man.
I get 5. Okay, number 1. I honestly, I'll give him 5, and then I'll rank them.
Okay.
So, Eddie Van Halen. I mean, he's the reason I started playing. Stevie Ray also. Yeah,
Nice.
Stevie Ray and Eddie were the guys that like made me want to start playing. When I was a little kid, my dad does not play guitar at all. Nobody in my family plays. And how lucky was I that I had a dad who loved guitar players so much that like when I started playing guitar when I was like 14, my dad's like, "Hey son, you need to check out Al Di Meola." How the hell does my dad know who like you know what I mean? Like a guy who is not a musician listening to Al Di Meola when he was, like in college and stuff like that. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
But my dad, his guy is Stevie Ray. Stevie
Nice.
is my dad's like everything. And so I remember Nate Nicholson and Kathy for my dad for Christmas one year, and this would have been like probably 1998, 99. It's right after he moved here, or not after he moved here, but after he married Kathy. They would come over for Christmas, and they bought my dad the Stevie Ray Austin City Limits box set.
Oh, nice.
And it was the one from like 83 where he wasn't sober, and then the one from 89, which that's the one where he's wearing the black, sober, and it's just freaking insane. But I remember watching that and just being so like enamored with like what he looked like and with what his guitar looked like. And I would stand there with a yardstick. My grandma was a seamstress, and I would grab a yardstick, and then I would take one of her pedals for a sewing machine. And again, I didn't know what they were, like what Stevie was doing, but I remember seeing him do that thing with his foot, which was a wah pedal. And I would put that on the ground, and I would stand there with my yardstick, and I would just like for hours watching Stevie Ray at Austin City Limits and playing, not having any idea.
That's awesome.
So Stevie was the first one, but Eddie, what happened is, my dad got me a guitar, and then I learned like Smoke on the Water, and then I was like, I suck, and so I like didn't play for a little while. And then one day, do you remember the store? It was right across from North Park Mall on Northwest Boulevard called Steve & Barry's. It was there for like a little bit. It was like a low cost clothing store called Steve & Barry's.
It's not. It doesn't ring a bell, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it was right across from the mall. So we were sitting, because this memory is so visceral. We were sitting in my dad's Jeep, and I was in the passenger seat with my feet on the dash. And my dad said, "Son, listen to this." And he put in, which I now know as Van Halen, the best of. The black one with the gold VH logo on it, best of Volume 1. And he put on Eruption. And I get goosebumps talking about it, dude. It literally changed my life. Like I heard Eruption, and it was like a divine moment, dude. I have never, even to this day, I had never heard anything like that in my life. Still haven't. And I just remember being like, it's almost indescribable how powerful that moment was of hearing Eruption. And I heard that, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to do that. That was it. That was it. And since then, that's been what it was, man. I was just like, that was it. And then I remember not too long after that, my dad bought me the first Van Halen record, like in its entirety. And I remember him putting on Ice Cream Man. And that solo for Ice Cream Man kicked in, dude. And I was just, again, it was like that happening again. I was just like, oh my God.
That's
Like
great.
you know what I mean? Because all the guitar I'd been listening to up to that point, you know, which was great, was like, you know, Stevie. And again, Stevie's insane. Again, massive influence on me, but I'd never heard rock guitar like that. You know, I'd been listening to like Nugent. Again, I love Ted, massive Nugent fan. Like Zeppelin, Ted, stuff like that. And then you hear Van Halen, the first Van Halen record, and it's like a fucking alien from another planet, you
Right.
know? So yeah, so Ed and Stevie for sure. Eric Johnson, that was the
Nice.
second. Eric Johnson was the second like life-changing moment as a player. That was because of Caleb actually. So this would have been like I was like 15 or 16, and you know Eddie was my guy. All I was doing was like studying Van Halen. I had a period of like where Satch was one of my big guys because I go through phases, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
Um, and I just been all Eddie and all Joe Satriani, and Caleb gave me the Avia Musicom Eric Johnson record to listen to, and I was like just mesmerized by it. But the real moment happened. He took me to go see Eric Johnson. It was an acoustic show in Iowa City, but he took me to go see Eric Johnson. And when we were there, I got to meet him, and he had CDs for sale. And his second record, well, actually, it's not a second record. It's his second like famous album. It's called Avia, or not Avia Musicom. It's called Venus Isle. And I bought that CD while I was there, and he put it in his car when we left from Iowa City to drive home. It's like an hour. And I remember laying in the back seat, and the first track is a song called Venus Isle, and there's a guitar solo on that, like at the end of the song, man. And I just remember laying in the back seat. It was like I was high on drugs, dude. Hearing what he was doing was just like, it was just like it was with Ed. I was just like, I am going to do that. That's what I want to sound like. Like that's it.
Nice.
So Eric Johnson, and then Neil Sean. Neil Sean is equally as important of an influence on me as those two. Neil, it's just, I mean, the way that he like can just shred and burn as good as anybody or better than anybody, but also write the most beautifully melodic solos. Like I've always wanted my playing to be like that, where it's like, you know, it's like an F-18 full afterburner, just shred, but then also is like a kite just sailing through the
Mm-hmm.
sky. You know what I mean? To be able to have both of those things like right next to each other and just do it whenever you want. I've always loved that. One of my favorite Neil things. Do you remember from the '80s? There was like the guitar shredder version of "We Are the World" where they did that "We Are Stars" thing.
Oh yeah.
So where it's like Ronnie James Dio was singing, and then they had like every guitar player in the '80s like did a solo on this track. It was like Yngwie and Warren DeMartini and Lynch and everybody. And you know, at the time, you know, Journey's got these massive hits like Pop Radio, and Neil plays on it, and Neil just absolutely like, you know, these guys do their solos, and then it's Neil's turn, and Neil just absolutely just destroys everybody. Just does the most ridiculously shred solo, just insane. And I just remember being like, see, I want to do that. I want to be able to write like the solo to Who's Crying Now, like that you could sing, but then also just like shred like crazy, you know, when you need to. But I always love that about Neil. But so Neil, Lukather, Steve Lukather is huge, massive influence on me as a person too. He's like the best guy ever. He's just everything that you'd want to be. Like if you know, like if I was a guitar hero, you know, and I was a famous guitar player and was like Lukather, I would want to be like him as a person. Like that's the guy you want to be like as a person also. But you know, musically, I mean, dude, just so many hit records that he played on that people don't even know about because he's a session guy. And obviously the Toto stuff too. But yeah, Lukather, and what am I? I'm at 4 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
5. I mean, I want to say Bonamassa, you know, because Joe was a huge one on me, but I loop him in with Eric Johnson in terms of his influence on my playing, like how I actually play. The stuff that Joe does is the Eric Johnson stuff, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I do. So I kind of feel like saying Eric Johnson is like saying Joe Bonamassa. Probably. Oh my gosh, this is a tough one, dude. Man, Clapton.
Okay.
Yeah, but '80s Clapton though. That's the
Gotcha.
thing. I'm weird like that. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, Cream," which is awesome. It's amazing, but '80s Clapton, man, like the August album and Journeyman, honestly Behind the Sun too. But August, the record August is a desert island album for me, and then the Journeyman, you know, 24 Nights, like that from like '85 to '92, Clapton was like dude, there was a period of time when I was in Dirt Road Rockers where I bought this black and white Mexican Strat with a maple neck, and I would wear like a sport coat and play that guitar at my shows because I just wanted to be like Clapton.
That's
And I was
great.
like, dude, I mean, I was like 20 or 21. Like, it wasn't like I was a kid. Like, I would literally dress like him because I was so inspired by him. But, that's what made me want to get a Soldano.
Nice.
It was Ed using the Soldano on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. That was the first one. And then Clapton using the Soldano. I heard his tone with the Soldano, and I was just like, that is the nastiest guitar tone I've ever heard in my life. Like, it's just like, I describe sound or guitar tones in like a weird way with adjectives, but it's like molten lava. Just is what his tone sounded like to me. And so yeah, and I still have that amp. I'll never get rid of it. That's why I got it. See, I would say, yeah, Ed, Stevie Ray, Neil Sean, Lou Lukather, Clapton.
That's a good list, man. Wow.
Yeah, those are my guys, man. And also, to be real with you, dude, I know we only said 5, but Scotty Whitehall and Nate Nicholson were also massively, like, seriously. I was trying to learn the shit that they were doing almost as much as the guys that I just listed.
That's awesome.
But the difference was I got to go see them every weekend. I got to go stand in like the corner of a bar and they're standing next to an ATM, and I'm like 3 feet away, and I'm getting to see the stuff that like only my big heroes do, but I'm seeing it in real life. Like, these guys are doing it right here. And I would just go, cool. I even have, it's on my grandma's. She had a camera and she let me use it because Martinis wouldn't let me into that place because I was underage if I wasn't playing. So Whistle would come pick me up in his Suburban and take me down there when he would go set up because then I was like part of the band.
Right.
So they would, and I took my grandma's camera with me, and I still have it. And this was from 2009. I have videos of Nate. I was standing there right next to him, filming him and watching him like doing what he was doing. I mean, I just remember like he did. There was a lot of amazing stuff he did, but there was a solo that he would do on the Prince song "Controversy," and he would do this thing where he would do like the Inspector Gadget theme and then just shred. And I just remember how powerful it was, dude. I mean, it was like intoxicating watching him do that and hearing what it sounded like. So yeah, I mean, on that list of 5, like I said, I know we only said 5, but Nate and Scotty were definitely as big of an influence on me as those guys. For sure.
That's great, man.
Which I'm lucky, dude. I mean, honestly, like as a 14-year-old kid, I mean, like, dude, those 2 guys in their primes, I got to just watch all the time and be around all the time. I mean, that's pretty lucky that I was able to just exist in the same area and know the same people and be friends with those guys to be able to see that. Because I mean, that's like going to the University of Guitar,
Right.
So I got really lucky with that. But yeah, well, sorry, that was a long story.
Oh, you're fine, brother.
That's definitely my list of biggest influences for sure.
I'll give you 5. I'm not a guitar player, but I know a good one when I see one. But yeah, I'll probably, these are in no particular order, but I've always loved Paul Gilbert.
Dude,
guy's a monster.
I had a big Paul phase.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Who else would I get on there? Definitely Paul Gilbert. I would probably say Andy Timmons is another good one.
See, there's another one too for me. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we could do this all day, but Andy Timmons, and I'd probably definitely would go with Tracy Guns is going to be my all-time favorite because I'm a huge LA Guns fan, and that guy's.
I need to listen to more LA Guns. I've never really listened to LA Guns, dude.
Smoking guitar player. I'm going to actually go see him this Friday with Tom Kiefer at awesome. In St. Louis. It'll be my 51st LA Gun show, man.
That's awesome. I need to listen to him. I can
love
honestly
that band.
I've known obviously who they are forever.
Yeah, I've got Tracy Guns hat. I don't know if you can see it.
So cool.
I love Tracy Guns, man, and he's a hell of a guy too. He's kind of like Lukather, man, like you said, man, just a great guy.
Yeah,
very very friendly to people that approach him. He's just super cool guy.
Yeah.
And I got to name 2 more, man. You're making it hard on me. Probably go George Lynch. Had to throw George in there.
George, I mean, I love Dokken, but that first Lynch Mob record, like She's Evil, but She's Mine, dude. I mean, I could go on for days about George Lynch too. That first Lynch Mob record is almost a daily listen for me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go one over too. I'm gonna say Steve Stevens has got to be on that list.
Oh, dude, I forgot to name him.
And I'll throw Richie Kotzen's name out there too.
Dude, that's an incredible list, man.
Yeah.
I see. That's what happens when I do these damn lists is I forget about people. Steve Stevens is massively important to me. Also, can I show you something?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, hold on, it's in my road case. Which I think I had this when I saw you. I'm pretty sure I had this. Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So a cool little link with Steve Stevens is that he uses and is endorsed by Nags Guitars, and that's what I use. And my goal someday, the thing is amazing. I love this neck, is awesome.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, it's my first custom guitar ever. I love this thing so much. Those guys are amazing. They've been so good to me. But my goal someday is I want to, because Steve was massive. I mean, I do listen to Billy Idol every day. I love Billy Idol. I think what I loved about with his stuff was like the songs were amazing, but it was like dance, like pop, like you like dance to it and played on the radio, but it was also like badass at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, like Billy Idol's thing, like he was cool, but it was never corny. You know what I mean? Like he was like, it was almost like he was like a combination of Elvis and Jim Morrison and like Sid Vicious.
That's a good way to
You know
put
what I
that.
mean? Like honestly, like I see so much and hear so much Elvis in Billy Idol. And so then you back that up with Steve Stevens and these incredible songs. And yeah, dude, like I could go on forever about that. But yeah, man.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're leaving out some good ones, man, but we'll save those for the next time I have you on, man.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah, I hope I was interesting. I
Oh,
feel
dude,
like,
I had a blast. I always enjoy speaking with you, man. It's
I know
good.
we need to. When are you going to be? Do you ever go back to the Quad Cities, like to visit ever?
Oh yeah, I get back there regularly. I don't go every month or nothing, but a few times a year I get back there.
Nice. Yeah. Well, if I'm ever around your way playing, man, you're always welcome to come out, man. I would love to see you again. And
Yeah.
my goal is, at some point here, not too far away, that I'm playing an arena or a stadium, and I'm like, Bobby, passes are at will call.
Yeah,
That's my real goal. And like honestly, that's half the reason I want to be like really successful as far as like that part of my career, is so I can like bring my friends with me.
That's cool.
It's not even really about like me. It's like I just want to take the people who have been so good to me, whether it's my dad or my best friends or people like you, like, and like bring them with me to experience that. Like Bob Boyd, for instance, dude. I want to bring Bob Boyd along and like get him up in front of 30,000 people and like play a song with him, just because I want to bring my friends with to do shit like that.
Yep. That's cool, man.
But yeah, man, I'm going to do my damnedest to make that happen,
Well, dude, we're all rooting for you, brother, and we're proud of you, man.
Thanks, man. It really means a lot, dude. You've always been so good to me. And I've always considered you a close friend. And, I just appreciate that. And I think I appreciate it. And I'm sure it's like this for everybody. A lot more as I've gotten older, people like you, which I don't have too many, but I have, a select few people in my life that are like you, where, we weren't like best buddies or anything back in the day. We didn't really know each other super well, but you were just always really good to me. And even when you didn't really know me that well. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. And I just have always appreciated that. And I try to be like that to people the same way because of that. So thank you for always being.
Buddy, you got it, man. And likewise, dude, a lot of respect there, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And I'll say this last thing: you are the real. You're a real one. You're the real deal. I always tell people, when you go watch musicians, you'll see guys that are like decent and everything like that, but then there you see those people that like really are the real thing, and you have always been one of those guys. Like you're the real thing, and I think that musician to musician, like there's nobody that I respect more than people like that, and you're definitely one of those people.
Man, I appreciate that, brother.
Dude, absolutely.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited, man. This is awesome. Do you know when it'll be out?
I'll probably before the week's out.
Sweet. Yeah, let me know. I can't wait to share it.
I'll send it to you. Don't worry.
Awesome. Sweet, man.
You have a great night, brother. Take care, man, and keep me posted on what's going on with you.
Thank you, brother. I will text you.
All right, buddy. Take care, man.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.